Watch an Old Spice ad and get better at selling? What the hell am I talking about? Stick around to find out on today's episode of This Week in Sales. Hello and welcome to This Week in Sales. I'm Kevin Gaither, the Director of Inside Sales at BetterWorks here in Santa Monica. You may recall the goal of the show is to help sales professionals with tips and tactics and techniques to help them improve their performance right now. Today's guest is Brennan Beyer, who's the VP of Sales of GumGum, which is an internet brand advertising company. Brennan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks for coming on. So, Brennan, what's your nightmare sales job?
Good opener. Isn't sales an everyday nightmare? That's why most people say they don't want to be in it, huh? Now, the nightmare sales, I think it's the situation is the impossible ask. Quick example, and I like this example. It's the other side of the fence. We're all in sales, but you look at marketers, and I think this is part of what I'm here to talk about. I have an old client who runs resort marketing for Hyatt hotels, and their newest resort, long time planning, finally opened in Las Vegas. The problem was the resort wasn't on the Strip. It was 22 miles off the Strip, and it opened during the recession. So now that the project is no turning back, they weren't filling rooms, and it became a marketing problem. Go sell us some rooms. Marketer's job, that's you. You know, stepping out of everyday sales, you look at projects that big, and it's the impossible ask that I think salespeople sometimes find themselves in. And it just compromises the way you do things, and that's a nightmare.
That would be a nightmare, absolutely. Well, Brennan, before we introduce you properly, let's have a word from our sponsor. How many times have you heard that the contract is signed on my desk and I just need to scan or fax it over? Asking your buyers to print, sign, scan, or fax back a contract creates the hassle of extra steps. EchoSign simplifies the problem by making contracts digital. EchoSign is extremely easy to use for senders and signers, owned by Adobe, so it's a trusted source, and integrates with all major CRMs, Salesforce, NetSuite, and Sugar. Call 877-324-6744 and use the promo code ThisWeekInSales to take advantage of a special discount they have offered for our viewers only. So my guest today is Brennan Beyer. Brennan Beyer brings more than 15 years of experience in digital media and sales leadership to his new role as the Vice President of Sales at GumGum. Most recently, Brennan was Vice President of Sales at Social Vibe, where he built a national sales team of over 20 reps and a blue chip client roster totaling more than 350 major brands. Prior, Brennan Beyer pioneered some of the first ever social media campaigns on Facebook with socialmedia.com. He was also a pioneer in search advertising, building the largest B2B search engine and directory with business.com, where he grew an inside sales team of over 25 and a strategic agency team of 15. And in between, Beyer led a team at advertising.com as the Southwest Sales Director. Visit Brennan and learn more about GumGum at www.gumgum.com. So Brennan, the audience is waiting. How can watching an Old Spice ad help me get better at sales?
Yeah, it's an interesting segue in general. So I've been selling advertising, for more than 15 years, and I don't think it dawns on a lot of people. We're asking for advertisers' budgets. We're selling them. We're selling them to our services. Sometimes they control budgets anywhere from $500,000 to $50 million. But their ultimate job is to let their brands sell everyone in a household, everyone in a business, everyone making purchase decisions. And you think about that's where the big money flows. Billions and billions of dollars. I know, $50 billion in digital advertising. This is the biggest sales arena on the planet. And so advertising is a great lesson on how to do it well.
Yeah. So talk to me more about that Old Spice commercial. Is this your man? Picture I'm look at your man. Look again. Look back at me. I'm on a horse.
Right.
What are we talking about there? Why is that so important and relevant to you? And saying, hey, if you're a sales guy that wants to learn how to get better, pay attention to what they're trying to do with that messaging on that commercial. Tell me more about that.
Because it took a product that us older folks remember as your grandfather's, your father's deodorant, the old man, deodorant. Now it's the #1 item in its category. So, you look at, it's about selling personality. It's about selling, how people want to think of themselves when they use a product. And everyday sales isn't always about benefits and features. Deodorant, it may be obvious that how can you give too many benefits and features of a deodorant, but this transfers all the way over to the automotive industry, which is the highest consideration purchase, and not every ad is talking about cargo, carrying capacity, fuel efficiency. Some do, but many automotive ads are about what kind of person do you want to be when you make a purchase. And I think everyday decision makers are doing that with differentiated and undifferentiated products especially. And you got to realize that there's a human decision maker on the other end. A human that is making decisions based on, I want that salesperson to think of me in a certain way, or I like that style.
Right. I mean, I'm under no aspirations that I'm going to buy Axe deodorant or Old Spice and automatically I'm going to become like the best looking guy and scoring chicks left and right. I mean, I know that's not going to happen, but those commercials tap into stuff like that, though, right? And that's what you're getting at when you're talking to that buyer, when you're talking to the person to which you're selling. You need to be thinking about, hey, how do they want to be perceived as that buyer? Because you've got internet advertising product A versus internet advertising product B. But if they go with you, you might score more chicks. Is that what you're trying to say? I mean,
yeah, it is. I think there's a skew, and I don't think that people take personality benefits of a salesperson or a product's personality, point blank, but they do want to skew toward one or the other. And I think that something like an Axe is more about sex appeal, and I think Old Spice is more about confidence, and I don't think it's about being Brian Urlacher or getting the cheerleader. I think it's, do you skew more toward sex appeal or confidence? And by the way, who can name the #3 deodorant in the market? Yeah, well, it's Right Guard. So it's Right Guard. So again, it's sales tactics, and I think direct selling. Hopefully the people that appeal to the show, it's about direct selling, and I think anytime you can add personality into your process, it's tremendous.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Beyond just the features and the benefits, and I think we're going to talk about some of those questions here. The one thing that I continue to be fascinated about the internet brand advertising sales aspects is selling through third parties. And I'm not talking about channel partners, although agencies can be considered channel partners in a way. But there's nuances associated with selling through agencies that you just don't get in a lot of other forms of sales. I mean, who tell the audience, who are you actually selling to in a lot of instances when you're trying to earn those ad dollars for your for your publisher?
Yeah, I mean, look, ad agencies, they are a third-party agent. They're taken very seriously because ad agencies are in television lore. Ad agencies are glamorized because they're very, very big budget third-party agents. Now, the other adage in ad agencies, so selling through a third party, is you sell the account with your A team and you execute with your B team.
What do you mean by that?
Your pitchman. So an ad agency will, look, Microsoft just changed agencies after roughly 15 years in San Francisco. A $1.5 billion account just changed agencies. So you can imagine the pitch team. You can imagine the top flight creatives that came and pitched But $1.5 billion of ad decisions are not executed by that same pitch team.
Mm-hmm.
Is it truly the B team? I'm not saying that it's B caliber, but it is the B team. Mm-hmm. You don't get people as close to winning the business executing on all. So, when you're selling to that third party, to that agent, they don't work directly for the company. They take pride in their work, but maybe not at the same level all the time. And so there's a factor.
And they're the B team, you're saying.
They're the B team, and,
right.
and this isn't
right.
This isn't a performance indictment. It's just they're not the pitch team.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're going to these media planners that they're 24, right. They probably get paid very, very little to do what they do.
Right.
But they've got a lot of money that they're responsible for planning and allocating and
right,
even making
right.
recommendations, which scares the daylights out of me. How do you sell to that when some of them are even thinking, I'll be here for 6 months and then I'm on to something else. This is like my day job.
Right.
I do something else. How do you sell to those people to get them to buy what you're selling?
It is a younger industry. And I don't think that they picture themselves leaving their firm, but I do think that this is an industry where people think about career advancement. Mm-hmm. And whether that career advancement's with the same ad agency or they jump to another one. And so career advancement's an important way to sell. Mm-hmm. Now, starting with brass tacks, if you sold everything based on a checklist of product benefits and side-by-side comparisons, your head would explode. And I'm talking about a decision maker, not the seller. But you can appreciate that when you buy your everyday household goods. Are you doing side-by-side comparisons to everything from dishwashing detergent to mayonnaise to, cotton shirts? I mean, if you did all this, so sometimes you have to make those gut feel buys. And a lot of that gut feel is based on, the right personality, how many touch points did you have, how recognizable is the product? And a lot of then that goes to the gut. So, I think salespeople take pride in absolutely understanding the side-by-side comparison of their products. They absolutely understand every product benefit down to the minute calculation. But in my industry, the media team could select 25 to 30 vendors to execute a project. So they have to make a lot of decisions. They also have to sift through 100 to 150 different vendors to whittle it down. Now going up the funnel, they get calls from 500 to 600 people who claim that they have a fitting solution. So.
Right. So if I hear you correctly, what you're, when you talk to those media planners, the 23-year-olds, the 24-year-olds, whatever, you've got your features and your benefits, and that's sort of like, okay, I got that. Mm-hmm. But you need to be, and this is relevant for any sort of sale, not just digital advertising sales, but you need to be speaking to what this is going to mean potentially for their career. You know what? Buying from GumGum is probably going to be a good decision for you because you're going to be on the leading edge. You're
right.
going to be recommending something that a year or two from now, people are going to be like, wow, Jane recommended that 2 years ago. What an innovator. And you're like, wow, pat yourself on the back.
Yeah.
Am I hearing you right?
So I've always had a liking for cutting edge solutions. The drawback is it doesn't always have the track record of proof of performance. But the cutting edge nature is an amazing draw for people who understand that internet advertising, the digital industry, is always onto its next frontier of solving for clutter, solving for performance. So there's not always that track record, but I can appeal to people's personal nature that, and to get specific, let's talk about, maybe certain sales calls. And I think the message is both quick sound bites about what your product represents. Most stuff is forgotten, even if you have a leave behind, even if you have a media kit,
That's
most
right.
stuff is forgotten. I've got a quick story on that, but if you can talk in sound bites and then quickly get to what it means for the decision maker, what it means for them personally, it could mean less work on their plate. It could mean justifying the agency's value to the client because they've discovered this hot new sector. Aspirationally, you can say, think about the first people that discovered keyword advertising on Google. what did they bring to their client before Google was a must-buy to the tune of billions of dollars? And so I think you put things in perspective, and you challenge them to maybe think aspirationally about doing business together.
Right, exactly. Especially when you're selling these bleeding edge types of products, right? Absolutely.
That's right.
Good, good. Right. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit. You've built multiple teams in the past, and you're doing it again in the weeds and from a high level, building sales teams. Right now, for the sales leaders out there, let's talk to them a little bit. What are the top 2 things on your mind right now in building your new sales team over at GumGum?
Yeah, so number 1 is you got to have a playbook. And that playbook will establish the important regions, how many people per region. Everything is going to be put together like a team. Then you put that playbook aside, understand that that's a benchmark, and it's essential that you never pass up that perfect fit. That personality, which is going to be a game changer for your company. If you're hiring just to fit that playbook, you're going to put probably undue restrictions on, I'm going to collect this many this many resumes, make a decision in this time frame, pull the trigger because we have to stick to the plan. Because that plan is a great mold, but you got to think of your business 2-3 years down the line, and it's never, wow, we got here 3 years from now because we followed that plan. No, it's because we hired game changers. And so, there are regions where you switch it up. You take a head out of New York, which pains me to say that you would ever take a head out of New York, but it's important that if San Francisco, if there's just a game changer personality in San Francisco, bam, you pull the trigger. And then you shift your effort to owning the Western region rather than balancing out your sales.
Right, right.
So that's a big one. And for my type of company, I think the second big one is finding people with a high sense of self-awareness. I think people interview best and understand where they're headed in their career, what they want to accomplish out of things. These are the people that are the best sales consultants, that high sense of self-awareness. And it's interesting in the interview process how rarely that comes out.
What do you ask to find out if they have high sense of awareness?
Just rationale. It's as simple as rationale questions.
Give me an example.
Why did you take that last job? What did you choose? What did you want to accomplish? And they don't have to have accomplished it, but they had to have at least thought about, I'm taking this job because it has this criteria. And look, if that criteria is, making a certain paycheck, articulate that, right? So there are just a lot of people who take a job because they got talked into it, and they say, well, I followed somebody there who I really respected, and
right.
So you basically took a plunge, or
Right.
So.
There's 2 things that I'm thinking about here. Mark Suster, who's on the show this week in startups and venture capital very frequently, he just had a blog post come out recently. Hire fast, fire fast was the title of his blog post, and that's completely contradictory to what most people would say. You got to hire slow and fire fast, but he's just saying, opportunistic. You see that right hire, don't waste time.
That's right.
Go for that person. You'll figure out if they're a good fit once they start, because you just can't know. The interviewing process itself is an imperfect process. Get them on the line and see, see how they do. So I think about that, and then I also think about the Top Grading, which is a book that you and I have talked about in the past, which is basically the manual that GE would have used to hire executives and things like that. And I've taken pieces of that puzzle out there. But this is something you've learned on your own, and that thought process of why they took a job is like right out of the textbook, like literally out of the textbook. What were your expectations for the job before you got there? What did you hope to accomplish with the job? What did you find when you got there at the job? What did you accomplish? And of course, the last question being like, why are you leaving now? And that tells a whole picture. And if you do that with each of the jobs, you go down their resume and you do that with each of the jobs, and it's, I thought it was going to be awesome. I was going to make a bunch of money, but then I didn't get along with my boss. And then you do the next one. Thought I was great opportunity, going to make a bunch of money, didn't get along with my boss. You start to see these, these patterns, and you go, you know what? You're not so self-aware that it's probably you that's the problem and something you need to change, right? But you've learned that. You've learned that like the hard way. Right?
Well, and these are the. And these are the people that are good at handling a sales call, because I think that you gain a sense of, what are you expecting out of this sales call? What are you expecting out of this presentation? The phone, the conference call, just every touch point with the client. And I think there are people who thoroughly think through it. And it might be 10 minutes before the call or several hours of prep work. But understanding what you really expect out of it, did it go as planned? What curveball did I not expect? And then suddenly you just become a savant with every situation, and clients just respond. They're like, "Wow, you really understood where this was headed, or what my pain points were," and
Well, on the show we talk about this quite a bit. This is why top NFL teams, all NFL teams actually, have game film. They review the game film before they go in. They're looking at pictures after every single play. When Eli Manning comes off the field, they're sticking pictures right in his face every single play, or after 3 and outs. That was for the Niners, 3 and outs. Anyway, and it's because you want to be aware of the things that you were doing right and the things that you were doing wrong, and then looking at the game film of the entire game there. And that's the kind of stuff that you're talking about. Like, look. If you don't have self-awareness, you can't review game film and view it objectively. You can't go, look, I'm Frank Gore, I'm awesome, or no, it's Frank Gore, I can get better, I can work harder, I'm Jerry Rice, I can always make that cut a lot better the next time. See how I missed it by a half of a yard? I should have been a lot crisper and cleaner on that. And as you work through your playbook, from a tactical perspective, like you said, you become a savant because you think about the scenarios that you might face. Then when you reflect back on what actually happened, and then hopefully you document that a little bit, right? You then get better at, like, 99% of the situations you're going to be prepared for because you've prepared for them. And then the ones that you weren't, you've documented and developed some sort of a game plan. So I love that.
The best salesperson I've ever worked with always, after a call, there are people who kind of do that rally. Oh, that went great. Oh, I think we're going to win this one. Kind of rally after the call. We all like to pump up afterwards.
Got to be somewhat optimistic, right?
But there's a person, the best person I've ever worked with, and he was just a natural at just, he loved pointing out what he expected on that. Oh, this went just as expected. I think this was great, or absolutely didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And it was a fun post-mortem, and there wasn't a lot of pressure on that. It just came naturally. And
right. Well, kudos to you, by the way, because that's a testament not only to hiring the right person that has some self-awareness, but you created an environment, by the way, that he or he's aware, he's comfortable in telling you the areas where he thinks he could do better without getting crushed totally. Right?
That's right. So, and he was a senior person, so even better, he never lost that trait climbing up the executive titles.
Right, exactly. So. Good. All right, let's talk about something real tactical. You're building a sales team right now, and there's many directors and VPs out there that are doing this. How many accounts can one salesperson answer? Boom, give me your silver bullet.
25.
That's it, right? 25.
It really is. It's, I want it to be more,
Why isn't it? And for real, though, you're saying in your business it's 25.
Yeah.
And why do you say that in your business? What's some of the rationale, Mr. Beyer, behind 25?
So in our business, the rationale is we work in a business where there's a lot of cross-selling and upselling. Whether or not the cross-selling and upselling is with our own product or among the client group. You can't just go sell an ad to Toyota. Right? It's not just Toyota. Toyota's not a decision maker. Yeah. It's the Toyota Prius, but it's not even the Prius. It's the Prius in Market Enthusiasts. It's the it's the Prius new model launch. Toyota's going to have corporate initiatives. I mean, then the entire line. So when you call in, and that's not even just automotive. Even a company like, let's say, 24 Hour Fitness doesn't just have one aspect of just selling memberships. They have the Olympics tie-in. You know, they've got, you know, big seasonal pushes. So it's that number because there are times when you feel like you can call more than that number. And that's kind of when when you haven't penetrated enough accounts. So you're trying to make inroads. Once you're doing business, the business, sometimes you've got it handled. Oh, I've got the campaign, it's doing well. And if you're off onto the next client, you're going to forget all those other opportunities, reselling the client, making sure they're happy. If you limit that number, if it's not 50, then you're always looking for, you know, how big is the team? Does the whole team know me? What if my main point of contact leaves? And these are the things that I think we forget when you're always trying to open new business. So there was a time when I was handling an account that was $800,000 a month. And I had a management team that said, yes, we get that, but what new business have you cracked?
Right.
And I said, that 800K can turn into $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.4 million. But, you know, senior managers are just trained to think it's new accounts. It's always new accounts.
Net new logos, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And look, I understand the argument against putting all your eggs in a basket, yet it's a pretty lucrative basket. I'd put a lot of eggs in that. And, you know, on that note, you do have to restrict the accounts, even if there's more out there to be had. I mean, people always want to, you know, I want to do some more cold calls. Sometimes it's not best for the business.
Right. Well, it sounds to me, you know, and this is, again, this goes to the rationale, and this is for like the leaders playing the home game here, right? What you described for me was a scenario where the question you asked was, how many people, contacts, you don't sell to Toyota, they're not a decision maker, how many people are involved in this acquisition of revenue? There are many people associated with that. And because of one person, it's 25 people at each of the 25 accounts potentially, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you think about those numbers added up, it's, you know, hey, there's a lot of contacts. Now, if you're selling a highly transactional product, that it's like, okay, there is just one buyer. It's a widget, and the widget is very simple, and we're talking about, you know, paper. Even in those situations, there could be multiple decision makers, you know, in different departments that have different, you know, paper needs.
Yeah.
But you've described the rationale of how many decision makers or potential buyers or influencers are involved in that purchase. But you've also described the touch points, not the people, but how many touches are potentially needed. A lot of touches, a lot of love for an $8,000 a month client, which is the third piece to the puzzle, and that is, hey, the bigger that lucrative pie, you know, that if we were talking about $2,000 a month cost per click advertising, you can handle a lot more than 25, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's right, yeah. And I think people love to feel like their account list has high volume. And as you go up to like a Google, sometimes they get you down to 2 clients. You know, don't we wish we could all be in that situation though, where your product suite and, you know, the money to have that you could call in just 2 accounts. But touch points can be seen, tying it back to advertising, is those touch points are essential. And so at the point of decision making, all that groundwork better be laid. You know, people say that I don't make decisions based on advertising, and you know, at times you quiz someone. Right now, you have to go get new life insurance. Without researching, some names are going to pop into your head.
Right.
And a lot of times with advertising or with any sort of product sales, you know, the person's not in market. Or we're not making decisions right now. You know, I'm not making auto insurance decisions, I'm not making lots of decisions. But if someone told me to think of a company that does X service, because you need to do it tomorrow, that some things are going to pop into head, and that's because I am susceptible to advertising on a daily basis.
Right.
And some messages that really sink in and you store away. And I think as a salesperson, you always want to be at that position. So,
top of mind.
That's right.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think that's a perfect segue to our final topic. As our audience knows, we talk a ton about social media with sales, and most of the time it comes down to, well, what we're really talking about is LinkedIn. maybe a little bit of Twitter, you know, that type of thing. And there's a lot of very similar messages here. Brennan and I have talked about this over the years. Brennan, what do you think social media is, and how do you think it relates to, you know, sales?
Yeah, I mean, I love the topic of social media.
I know you do. I know you do.
I've worked in it for a long time, and you know, if anything, because it's a hot buzzword. It's a hot buzzword. Everything is social, and yet is it everything social? The simple definition of social is a two-way conversation. And if there's no two-way conversation, or the ability for a two-way conversation, it is simply not social. LinkedIn is a platform, and it is a fantastic database. But when you're spying on data and you're trolling through second and third connections to steal, you know, titles, and then maybe that's not using social media at all. That's actually just tapping a database. Social media can be very effective for salespeople. You got to create a personality for yourself and exude that personality through the channels that allow people to understand who you are, who the person is behind your sales pitch. You can use Facebook, you can use LinkedIn to broadcast your thoughts, accept responses. Opening yourself up to a two-way conversation can be powerful. It could be a turnoff. So I don't think very many salespeople truly use social media to develop their persona and to develop two-way relationships with clients, you know, with clients who become friends, you know, that sort of thing.
You use the word persona, and I know the guys at the Brooks Group in North Carolina, they talk about positioning. You know, and they were talking about positioning before social media even existed. Give me an example of what you mean by, and you're talking about, again, this goes back to like brand advertising.
Yeah.
You know? How are you positioned in the
brand.
market? Yeah. How are you becoming a brand? So tell me the story. Tell me a story of a salesperson that you know that's doing well for themselves, has positioned themselves in social media or using social media.
Yeah, I've worked with an amazing salesperson, very, very successful guy. Now he's using Facebook. He's using the social media channels to develop his personality, and he's got quite a following. Everything gets commented on. Now his persona is, he's a heavy drinker, you know, huge sports fan. He's a staunch Republican and has very strict political, you know, opinions, but he's wicked funny. He's exceedingly good looking, and he treats people very nicely, even though he's got, you know, radical thoughts about things. But I think that's the draw. Those radical thoughts, you want to tune in to the next thing he finds on the internet, or a statement he makes, or a thought he has. And it is powerful because everybody wants to meet with him. He delivers amazing customers, so he backs it up, right? He's, you know, I'm an old Chicago Bulls fan, and it's the Dennis Rodman days. It's like, as long as he's backing it up on the court,
right,
he can have a persona. But that persona doesn't go anywhere. Not, you know, let's say the person moves into management and then maybe senior management, and maybe some of those personas are a little polarizing. You got to make a calculated decision, and I think we follow that in advertising a lot. I think you know, McDonald's just had a story come out where they tried to use Twitter to open a discussion about the freshness of their ingredients, and they said something about, with fresh from the farm ingredients, it leaves a taste, or something.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I just don't know if that's an open-ended thought you want to subject to social media. Yeah, it leaves a taste. And you know, you can imagine how people added to the conversation. Well, McDonald's had to take down the whole thing within, you know, an hour and a half or something. So,
right, exactly. Yeah, there's some risks there, no doubt about it. And you know, there's always that big debate. You know, your salespeople, they're on LinkedIn, they're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, and there's even companies out there that have whole social media policies about what can be posted and what can't be posted.
Right.
You're basically saying, hey, look, as long as you can back it up and you're achieving the positive results.
Yeah. Yeah, I prefer people be a little provocative. I prefer people stand for something and have a bit of a personality. You know, I'm in advertising sales, and I think, you know, attention works. I think you have to have an angle, and social media is a good use of that. But you know, it absolutely has potential to backfire. But.
Cool. Well, good. Well, Brennan Beyer, thanks for coming on the show today. It was a pleasure having you, man.
Always great talking to you, Kevin.
Great, great.
Thanks for having me.
So for those out there that have any questions for me, feel free to email me at askkevin@thisweekin.com. Of course, you can like our Facebook page at This Week in Sales. Tweet at us at Sales Week. Don't forget to download our iTunes podcast on iTunes, of course, and then see our show on www.youtube.com/show/This Week in Sales. Thanks for joining us today. Check us out next week on This Week in Sales.